Shawn, would you say the fact that you have held so many different positions here at the company and done so many different things, you have a great understanding of what people do. Do you think that that's made you a better leader?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you've done it. You've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long ago that you were, a lot of people get in a spot and then they do one thing and then they kind of get to the management side and then they kind of stay in management most of their career. I would say the majority of mine was down in the trenches, and then you get to the management side of it, and then it's a lot easier to understand people when you've been there,
right?
And not just there for 6 months or a year, when you've really been down in the trenches and doing it.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS.
All right, everyone, you're ready to contact. You're cleared to the Bravo.
The Vertical MRO Podcast explores the fascinating world of helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul with your host, Val Medved.
Now line altimeter 3029, approved as requested.
The podcast features helicopter technicians, mechanics, engineers, and MRO experts who share invaluable industry insight, knowledge, and stories that will inspire current and aspiring industry maintainers.
Welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast, brought to you by Vertical HeliCASTS and in partnership with Vertical Magazine. This two-part leadership series was recorded on location in Shreveport, Louisiana at Metro Aviation. Leslie Ferry and I get to sit down with Metro Aviation's Director of Maintenance, Shawn Bruton, and Emmy Award winner, author, and keynote speaker, Clint Pulver. During our conversation, we explore the vital role of effective leadership in the realms of the MRO community. Shawn shares his story from starting out as a young man cutting grass to becoming a director of maintenance at Metro Aviation, and offers valuable leadership insights from his successful career. Clint shares his inspiring story from aspiring helicopter pilot to professional speaker and author, shedding light on the urgent need for transformative leadership training and its profound effect on organizational culture and employee retention. Drawing from his insightful undercover millennial research, highlighted in the book he wrote titled, I Love It Here, Clint reveals a truth we all know too well. Employees often leave their bosses, not their jobs. During the conversation, we discussed the importance of mentorship over mere management and the power of genuine connection in leadership. Clint will be speaking at the upcoming Vertical MRO Conference in both Kelowna, British Columbia, which takes place October 7th through 9th, 2025, and in Irving, Texas, which takes place November 10th through 12th. For more information and to register for the MRO Conference, visit verticalmro.com. Thank you to this episode's sponsors, Metro Aviation, Rotorcraft Support Inc., and Bell. Hey, welcome to the Vertical MRO Podcast. I'm today's host, John Gray. It's really cool to say that. Val's been sitting in the host seat for the Vertical MRO Podcast for the last year, and I've gotten to take a seat for a little bit to share the responsibilities of the host for the MRO Podcast. I really feel like that segment of our industry is underserved, underappreciated. So it's really cool to shine a spotlight on the work, like what you're doing. One of our guests, Shawn Bruton, he's evaded me for 3 years on the Hangar Z podcast, but I was able to pin him down here at Metro Aviation. So Metro has opened their doors for us to come and see our other really good friend, Clint Pulver. How are you, sir?
I'm great. It's good to be here.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
So
love you all.
Metro asked you to come in and present for two different events. Can you talk about those two different events and kind of what you did here?
Yeah, we did the lead conference probably a month ago, and then today we just did the comm conference. So the lead conference was focused around program directors, where today was more around comm center directors. So amazing event. Metro did an incredible job. Beautiful venue. We rocked out. We played the drums. Everybody got drumsticks.
Look at this drumsticks right here.
Yeah. We had a really great time. It's so cool to see the industry bringing people together and then providing value and content. And they're walking out of here saying, like, this was worth the flight. This was worth the time. And
absolutely,
they're taking it back to their teams, and we're trying to increase in engagement and retention.
Yeah. And giving them resources that they can use when they get back to their facilities, that they can put them into action right away.
Totally. Yep. It has to be prescriptive.
A lot of what we talk about in the podcast goes back to leadership, and you brought up recruitment and retention. Those are kind of a lot of the themes that we tend to talk about. And that's exactly what your book that you wrote, the research you did, and the presentation that you did today touches on all of those things. And again, we did have a chance to interview on the Hangar Z podcast, but I wanted to have this conversation, directed towards and specifically for the MRO community, because it's such an important part of where this community sits right now. We were just talking offline about, how it's really hard to find folks that will take these seats in the MRO community, because everyone's competing for this very small group of people. So if we can't really impact the recruitment side of things, we've got to learn how to retain the good folks we have. And you're 100% the expert when it comes to the retention side of things. And we'll get to the book you wrote and some of the research that you were a part of, which is really impactful. But I have to get to my good friend, Shawn here. Thank you, Shawn, for allowing us to hang out with you and for allowing us in the doors of Metro. It's really cool.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah. I remember a phone call that you placed to me was about 3.5, 4 years ago, maybe longer ago now.
That was about 4 years ago, I believe.
And we became friends right away. I remember it was wintertime. I'm out washing my car. I think there's snow on the ground. And I'm talking to Shawn, and Metro is offering, through Shawn, support of the podcast. We would not be here today if it weren't for your support and your friendship, so thank you very much.
Yeah, we were glad to be a part of it.
Going back to today, we got to come here and see Clint, and having read your book and having interviewed you before, there were so many additional takeaways that I got from today's presentation. So thank you for doing that. So awesome.
Thanks for coming out. It was good to have. It's always fun to have friends in the audience and people that you don't always get to see or have a relationship with before you go and speak. So,
yeah. Leslie, this is your first time seeing him present. What was your takeaway? What were your thoughts?
Mind blown. It was just really inspiring. And when he walked in today, I said, "You made me cry today because you really touched my heart." Especially when it comes to the world of MRO. To me, the folks that do MRO on helicopters, they're the heart of the business. And I'm excited to have you participate in some of our upcoming Vertical MRO conferences and share your expertise and just get everyone else fired up like I am when it comes to the world of retention. Yeah.
Bringing up the MRO conference, can you talk about that a little bit and kind of what some of our goals are as it pertains to the community that we're talking to?
Yeah, we've got 2 Vertical MRO conferences coming up this year. One is October 7th through the 9th in Kelowna, British Columbia. The other one will be November 10th through the 12th in Irving, Texas. A really heavy focus on education. Opportunities for folks to come in, whether they are technicians, DOMs, purchasing managers, general managers, whatever. They're going to have an opportunity to get a lot of different training on maintenance, but we're also pulling in the aspect of leadership. And so we're honored to have Clint come in to do his talk and just how to motivate the leaders into how they can become better leaders and keep their folks on their team. The conferences are also going to give lots of opportunities for networking. One of the things that I love about a small conference like this is it's almost like a family reunion. You get people together and you really get to talk. It gives some of the youngsters an opportunity to find mentors, which is critical in this industry. So it's just, I'm so very thrilled to be a part of this and excited for these conferences to get here. VerticalMRO.com.
Yeah, the conferences are huge. I love going there for all the reasons you said, but networking is a big part of that. I've got a chance to hang out with you at Verticon. We're walking around, you see, it's a small community that we're a part of. But
Totally.
you walk around and you get to see friends that you hadn't seen since the last show, but from a professional development point of view, I think it's really important to go to conferences, from the education that you get, the training. And I think education and training is different, but the networking too, because we're all dealing with problems at our own shops, and to come up with a solution, you don't have to reinvent the wheel a lot of times. I think you get there, how many problems have been solved over a beer and a napkin,
Exactly.
That kind of stuff is huge. So, for you, what's your take on the importance of conferences as a whole, and being a part of the community that way?
I think it's a great event. like you said, seeing everybody, seeing the people that you know that are in the industry. Like you live in California, I live in Louisiana. I mean, that's you meet up in Dallas, and yeah. So that's a great side of it. But yeah, you talk to different people and you see the challenges that they have, and you can talk about it, and just like you said, seeing those people there, and sitting down and drinking a beer, and it kind of brings everything together. It brings everybody together.
Yep.
So.
And a big shout out to Metro. You guys jumped on board really quickly as a sponsor of the Irving Conference, so we appreciate that support.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it.
Yeah, the amount of work that goes into the conferences is mind blowing. I've as a police officer when I was in that role, I hosted some fly-ins, and as a one-day, one-speaker event for like 150 people. And I would take a year essentially to plan for that one thing.
It's a lot of work.
So the amount of work that you've put in to make this successful is amazing. For the folks that haven't heard you speak before, can you tell us who you are and what your role is with MHM and a little bit about your background to where you are now?
Sure. My name is Leslie Ferry. I'm the event director at MHM Publishing, probably better known as Vertical Magazine. I've spent many decades in the helicopter industry. I started off, my very first event was Heli Expo 1997 in Anaheim. So being at the show this year was it was exciting to come back and to be a part of the helicopter industry. I left Bell after 23 years last year. 15 of those years I'd spent doing the maintainer and operator conferences, which was just near and dear to my heart. That's where I got my love and respect for the helicopter maintenance community. And so last summer I received out of the blue message on LinkedIn from Mike Reno. And Mike and I first met back in 2004, and when I was with the Bella Augusta joint venture, and he helped me out with doing some air-to-air photography on the at that time the AB-139, and we ran into each other from time to time at different shows and such. But so yeah, he reached out and we started talking, and then his incredible wife Linda got involved, and they had been thinking about doing these type of events for the maintenance community for many years, and I just say it was a God thing. It was meant to be. Yeah. And for me to have the opportunity to get back involved in something that I love and to work with a team that is so well respected in the industry as the Vertical team, it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
So here I am and excited to go.
Well,
awesome.
Thanks for joining us. And again, thanks for your efforts on the conference.
Certainly.
The Vertical team is a team I'm so proud to be a part of, and you guys are part of that family as well. So thank you guys for everything you do. The Heli Life part of what we're doing is really cool. Can you talk about that briefly?
Yeah. Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO Podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
Yeah, so I'm an owner of Heli Life, which is a helicopter lifestyle apparel brand, and it's all just geared around helicopters and the life that helicopters provide, whether you're a private owner, you do it professionally, just the magic moments that helicopters create. And it's just, I don't know, like what we're doing with the MRO conference, what you do here at Metro, what you're trying to do on Hangar Z, it's all about community. And that is what Heli Life represents. Is if I'm in an airport, I can't tell you how many times I'm wearing my Heli Life jacket and someone comes up and is like, oh, yeah, I fly helicopters. Or like, oh, I used to work on the helicopter. And it's just like, cool. And we'll sit there and just talk shop for hours. And that's what that brand represents. And so we've had the opportunity to partner with Vertical, and we're doing some sweet Heli Life giveaways. We're giving the Gore-Tex jackets, the hoodies, the hats, just some iconic brand apparel stuff that, again, connects that community. And it's just been a joy to be partnered up with the Helicopter Podcast, Hangar Z Podcast, and now be a part of the MRO Podcast.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
I love it. That brand, to like you said, I'll see someone wear that, and you know right away, like, oh, you're part of my, you're part of my circle.
You're part of the team.
We just don't, we don't know each other yet.
Yeah,
so
totally.
It's cool, and the designs you've come up with are badass.
Thank you, John.
love what you're doing there. It's a cool part of our community, and it's much needed. So
Thank
I
you.
love what he does on the speaking and motivational part of it, but the fact that you have this passion for helicopters makes you that much cooler.
No, thank you. I love it. It's the coolest thing in the world. They are
well,
best.
Shawn, if you could, for us, just let us know what your role is here at Metro. And you've got a long story and a long past with Metro. You've been here for how many years total?
30 years. It'll be 31 in October.
Man, I feel like that's something to celebrate. Like
It's a long time.
That's a big deal. But how did you end up even in this position to begin with? Where did you start?
Man, from the beginning, kind of a long story, but I'll try to make it short. So my dad worked here. I don't know, he worked, I think when he retired, he was here 30 years probably. I started mowing the grass here when I was in high school. Actually, it was at the old places at the downtown airport, which is half a mile from here. Tried a stint in college. College didn't work, and then I started in the paint shop. And I went through the paint shop and started out as just a paint helper, prepper. That was back in the days before we had DA Sanders or anything automatic. You had your hands and a bucket of water
and no air conditioning.
And no air conditioning. I mean, it's hard for me to feel sorry for people nowadays.
Well, the good thing is Louisiana's not hot or humid, so it probably wasn't bad.
Yeah, so it's optimal working conditions. So then worked my way up to the head painter. You know, people moved on. I worked into the head painter. Did that for a while, and then I moved into the production shop, and then started building the floors, building the interior panels, the med panels, things like that, the air conditioner systems. Did that, I don't know, 3 years, something like that. And then moved into the engine shop, the engine component overhaul shop where we walked through earlier. Yeah. Did that for a while. And we actually moved over here, and I had no intentions to do anything else. I was going to stay there. We moved over here, and when we first moved into the building, the engine shop, I felt like I was in prison. It was these big 14-foot tall ceilings with cinder block walls. And I said, man, I can't do it. I can't sit in here anymore. I'm going to go crazy. So anyway, it was a different time back then. The company was a little smaller, so had an opportunity to move out on the floor, and I started doing sheet metal work. Just kind of picked it up and kind of took it and ran with it. Did that for a while, and then just kind of migrated my way down to the maintenance flight line side of it. And we had another DOM come in, and I he left, and I had the opportunity, and I put in for it, and here I am.
Just a little bit of experience.
Yeah, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Shawn, I'm sorry. Shawn, would you say the fact that you have held so many different positions here at the company and done so many different things, you have a great understanding of what people do. Do you think that that's made you a better leader?
Absolutely. Yeah, because you've done it. You've been in their shoes.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long ago that you were, a lot of people get in a spot, and then they do one thing, and then they kind of get to the management side, and then they kind of stay in management most of their career. I would say the majority of mine was down in the trenches, and then you get to the management side of it, and then it's a lot easier to understand people when you've been there,
right?
And not just there for 6 months or a year. When you've really been down in the trenches and doing it, and Saturday was a standard work day, and it was, what it's like.
Yeah.
So
I think a good leader never asks his folks to do something that person wouldn't do themselves.
Yeah.
So the fact that you've held all these different roles not only lent to your knowledge and ability to direct, but also you understand where your folks are when it's 110 degrees out with 99% humidity,
Yeah.
So you have some relevant understanding of what that is, and I think that's huge. You know, what I want to touch on is 30 years. Your dad was here 30 years. You were here 30 years. The combined knowledge that you guys have and the impact you've had in the community over that amount of time is amazing. And I think, from my perspective, that's a rare thing for people to stay with one company for that amount of time. What it tells me is Metro has created a culture here that is worth staying for. And this is a good segue for Clint to come in. You know, I can't do you justice with the introduction, today's introduction. There was stuff I didn't know about you in today's introduction. I was trying to take notes and stuff, but man, you've got such an accomplished background. So I've got some things here. You're a leadership development specialist, and that's, you know, primarily what we're talking about today. An Emmy Award winner. Man, that's really cool. Like,
they'll give an Emmy to anybody these days.
See, you say that. That's what I love. Your humble attitude.
Yeah.
The effort you put in to create that is absolutely amazing. A top employee retention expert. Again, leadership and retention, I think, go hand in hand. So the fact that you can speak to both of those is huge. Keynote speaker, which we saw today. Man, it was electric. You know, I've been to a lot of presentations, a lot of trainings, and I've never been to one like you did today. Absolutely amazing.
Thanks, John.
Really good. You know, you engage the folks in a way that people are drawn in. They're like, they want to hear what's next. How many times have you been to training and there's people standing up in the back of the room trying to drink coffee because they can't stay awake? This is not that, you know.
Not at all.
You leave today's event pumped up, and you're like, okay, how do I bring this back?
With a list of things that you can take with you when you get back to your workplace, you can implement immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last point I'll bring up before I hand it over to you is your book. I love it here. I read this book, one of the best books on leadership I've ever read. It was a really fast read, and not in a elementary way, but in a way that I was drawn, and I loved the book. What I liked really about the book too was the action items at the end of each chapter. A lot of the books that you read on leadership, it's all philosophy based.
Yep.
And you walk away like, well, that's really cool, but how do I implement what I just read or learned?
Correct.
You've actually put actionable information in here, which is huge. So Clint, thank you for joining us. I still didn't do your introduction justice,
That's perfect.
but I really am honored and humbled to sit here with you, and thank you for leaning into our community. You know, it's really cool to have someone like you as a part of the helicopter community. So thank you for joining us.
You're welcome. I love you all. It's fun to do this with my friends.
Yeah.
That's what makes it. That's what makes it unique. I genuinely love what I do, and the thought of, you know, can we create a workplace where people don't just survive in this industry anymore, but we can transform it into a place where people thrive, a place where truly they go home and we create better moms, we create better dads, we create better families because of where you work. Where it's not about how do we better employees, but how do we create better humans? And ultimately, that creates a better business. That creates better profitability. That creates a better effectiveness and morale, and all the things that we're trying to do. And so much of that comes back to your manager, your leader. Leadership. It's the number one reason why people choose to stay in an industry. It's also the number one reason why people choose to leave. We all have had those crappy bosses, those controllers, the people that you just dread going to work because they're who you're with.
Right.
We've also had, whether it was a teacher, a parent, a grandpa, a friend, a mentor, somebody that breathed life into you, that communicated the potential, the worth, and someone that ultimately when you were with them, you go, I like myself best because I'm with you.
Yeah. Today you talked about something that I hadn't heard before, and maybe it was in your book and I didn't catch on it. Something along the lines of, you're the sum of the three people that you're around most often.
You will become
that.
the average of the three other managers that you associate with most.
And that, I'm like, wow, I actually hadn't thought about it in that way. And it really highlights the importance of culture within these different shops, these different agencies, wherever we work. It highlights how important that is, because if you're the average of the three that are bad, and you go home, you know, you first thing you want to do is kick your dog. Like that's not a healthy environment and a place to be. So can you, before we get into more of you know, your research and what you've done, can you talk about, you know, where you grew up and kind of how you got to where we are now?
Yeah, so
Rotorcraft Support Inc., where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified, Part 145 repair station, and OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry.
Yeah, so I was born in Utah, in Bountiful, Utah, and then my family moved to Texas. Grew up a little bit in Texas, and a little bit of Kansas as well. And then we eventually came back to Utah. We love Utah. It's a beautiful place. And that's always kind of been home. I grew up in Heber City, Utah, small little town. Always wanted to be a helicopter pilot. That was always the goal. My dad worked at the hospital, and every time an EMS helicopter would come in, whether it was AirMed or Life Flight, I would just beg my dad to go so I could just watch the helicopter land. It was the coolest thing. Here's someone in just a very hard, life-threatening situation, and these team of just ultimate professionals that demonstrated excellence in every way came in like literal angels, landed, everything shut down. They were in charge, and I just loved it. It was the sound, the again, the excellence, the teamwork, and the whole mission was to help somebody. Yeah. And I just said, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to do with the rest of my life. And I became I became a fixed wing pilot first. And then I left on a mission for my church and left for 2 years. And when I got home, I went to renew my driver's license, and I couldn't pass the vision test. And I learned that day that I had a rare degenerative eye disease called keratoconus. And my eyes as a 21-year-old kid were as bad as an 87-year-old's. Wow. And the doctor looked at me later in that consultation. He goes, your disease and the age that you're at and what we're seeing, you will be blind by the age of 31.
Wow.
And then he asked the question. He's like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I said, I want to be a helicopter pilot. I want to fly. And he goes, it'll never happen for you. And that was a moment, right? I talk about moments. I love moments. If you look at your life and really what makes it a great story, it's the moments. We don't remember days. We remember the moments. And that was a moment where I felt lost. I felt confused. I had no idea what I was going to do with the rest of my life. And I ended up going to school, went into the medical field, and always still just longed to be in the in the clouds. I just wanted to fly. And fast forward to just 2 years ago, I went in for a routine eye exam. 5 years prior to that, I had an eye surgery. I was one of the first human trials for a new procedure called cross-linking. And I was number 42 on the list. And they did the procedure on my left eye, and then 6 months later, they did the procedure on my right eye, and it stopped the progression of the disease. Wow. Kept me from going blind. But at that time, I was barely legal enough to drive. So I couldn't hold a first-class medical, even a second-class medical. I just wasn't able, I just couldn't see well enough to be able to have that ability. And so 2 years ago, I went in for a routine eye exam. Doctors flipping through, what's better, 1 or 2? 2. What's better, 2 or 3? And he looks at my medical history and he goes, I see you were a pilot. And you remember this, John? I said, yeah, I used to be. And he goes, why are you not flying? I said, I just can't. I said, I've tried and I can't pass the medical on the vision. And he goes, why are you not in scleral lenses? I said, I don't know what that is. And he goes, it's a brand new lens that's literally shaped and created for people with your eye disease. And I just said, I don't think this is going to work. I've tried so many lenses. It never works. He said, let me try. And long story short, we went through about 6 months of fit after fit, tweaking after tweaking, because they have to shape the lens. And it's just a grueling process to get this perfect fit so that your eye will work with the shape of keratoconus patients, like what we struggle with in our disease. And I'll never forget that day when he goes, what's better, 1 or 2? And this is after 6 months of the fit after fit. And he said, read the bottom line. And I said, CKGELFWZ. And he goes, you just hit 2020. And I started crying. And it was just an emotional moment because the first thought was like, I can fly. Yeah. I can do this. Right. And man, that just changed everything for me. And I was able to get back into aviation, went back to flight school, got proficient, got my add-on rating for helicopters, and purchased my first machine, an R44 that I absolutely love. And we've got some Hill helicopters on the way, and I love that organization as well. And it's just reignited what was once a lost dream that's now become a reality. And so the theme is sometimes good things fall apart so that better things can fit together in our lives. And
because I think you found another passion outside of flying.
Totally. And this was what I was supposed to do. This is what, I'm a very faith-based person, and I believe that the orchestration of something beyond me needed me to do something else. But in the end, it's worked out to continue to do what I'm put on this earth to do. So
yeah, it's wild. When you look in the rearview mirror, it's often easier to see how things fit together and why they did.
Sure.
But in the moment, when something bad happens, it's okay, what's next?
Yep.
And why is this happening? You know,
it's hard to see the picture when you're in the frame.
So the fact that you were able to, you know, pick yourself up and move forward is amazing. You talked about your youth and you know, seeing helicopters as a little kid. I think we probably all did. You see them, and you know, I still push my kids down when I see a helicopter. I'm like, I want to be the first one to see it. But I think of you know, your dad being here, you had to have been influenced in some way being around here as a kid, seeing helicopters. What was that like for you?
Yeah, it was, like you said, I still say, you know, you never stop and watch an airplane take off, but you'll always stop and watch a helicopter take off. That's true. I mean, it's just the way it goes. They're cool. It doesn't matter what you do or what industry you're in. They are cool, and I got to grow up around them. So I remember when my dad was he used to work at ERA down in South Texas, and getting to go down there and fly in the helicopter and go down through the marshes and look at the alligators and all that stuff, and it was, you know, it was pretty cool. You know, so yeah, it was a big impact. So yeah.
While we're kind of on the topic of recruitment and retention, can you talk about, from your perspective as a DOM at Metro, what you're seeing in the MRO community as it pertains to that? You know, we talked about some of the difficulties that surround finding folks that want to do the job or qualified to do the job. Where do we sit kind of as a community?
I think there's hope. You know, I think for a while everybody was kind of uneasy about the next generation, the new generation, the millennials and this, that, and the other. But I feel like there's hope. I think everything that we're doing now is bringing new generations in. It's a different way of looking at how you keep people and how you manage people, and you know, used to when I started here, it was, you know, it was a little rougher time, which is fine. You know, you made it through it and everything was good, but now it's not like that. So you have to kind of figure out how to navigate those waters and still be productive. Mm-hmm. That's the tricky part. And I think we're figuring it out, you know, with people like Clint. You know, you're coming in and it's showing you those things. But for people that were raised up in a different time, it's hard to go, man, listen to this guy. Man, he's so soft. He's so this, but he's really not. That's how that's how people want to be treated. I mean, you know, you have to be, I still remember your comment. Sometimes you just got to fire somebody. But yeah, I think I think we're just looking at a different time and figure out how to navigate those waters and how to keep people and how to bring people in and how to train people. You know, used to it was, you know, you just went out there and did it. Just go learn, figure it out. Well, now you got to put a little more effort into it on the front side to make everybody, you know, feel good about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing a lot here that we've been able to see this morning with training aids and training videos and doing different things to approach training differently than maybe how you have in the past, which is, it's really cool.
Yeah. We're working on a new training facility that's going to be, you know, videos, a lot of hands-on stuff. You know, we can bring you in and what we want to do is, you know, you can get avionics, you can get sheet metal, you can get, you know, systems, you can get a little bit of everything before you actually go out and touch the aircraft. You know, and that way you can bring in the younger guys. You can bring in the people that, you know, are in A&P school and they're getting a lot of real life experience instead of just book experience. Yeah. You know,
well, I think the chicken and the egg situation we find ourselves in a lot of times, folks are like, well, I want to work, but I have to have a certain amount of experience. So how do you do that? Well, you guys have kind of found a solution to that, which is cool. You know, I have to bring up, we're sitting in your guys' recording studio. I've actually never recorded in a studio like this. It's pretty awesome. I'm a little intimidated. Awesome. For the folks that are watching on YouTube, this is Metro's the recording training videos in here, and very professional setup. Very thankful for you guys to let us sit in here and record this. But it shows your guys' your efforts and energies that you're putting into providing that content for folks that are kind of demanding it in that way, you know. So again, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Said glad we could do it. Glad we could be a part of it.
Yeah. So I think what I'd like to do, Clint, is to pick your brain a bit on the research you did. Can you talk about the research that you did and how that led to the book that you wrote?
Yeah. So oftentimes the problem in leadership is you get a mentality of the manager, and then you get the mentality and the perception of an employee. And I hear it a lot, and I've done this for years now, to where I listen to the managers, I listen to the CEO, I listen to the directors of maintenance. You listen to like all their problems and all their difficulties, or they're just inability to see what's really there. Because the problem is I'll talk to a manager and they're like, yeah, we're doing good, you know, and things are fine and people are working and it's good and our retention's great. And then I go undercover. That's what all of this was based off, is undercover research. As a millennial, I would go undercover on the floor in the organizations as someone who was potentially looking for a job. I would listen to the managers beforehand, and then I would go undercover, and it was a completely different story. Toxicity, hatred, fear-based manipulation. I hate it. Burnout. I'm already looking for another place to work. And the manager thinks, it's fine. Everything's, you know, you don't want to be here? Fine, leave. We'll find somebody else. Like, and I'm like, there's such a disconnect, because most of the time there's no incentive for an employee to walk up to a manager, a director of maintenance, and say, hey, listen, you know, Doug, every time we win as a team, you know, you take all the credit. Or every time we lose, you know, you just constantly blame everybody. Like, we love you. Keep it up. Like, they're not going to tell you that. There's no incentive for them to tell you that. So instead, many employees will just leave, or worse, they mentally check out and then stay. So the beauty of the book and all of the research is I wanted to go in an authentic way, and I wanted to write something and capture the real truth that many leaders don't get the opportunity to see. And we did it in a way that I think is prescriptive, and we've done enough now. So we've worked with hundreds of organizations, and as of this year, over 11,000 employees I've interviewed undercover.
Wow.
I'll never do it again. It was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. But through that data, we were able to see trends. Okay, out of 150 employees in this industry, there's 2 consistent trends as to why people are staying and why they're leaving. And then I would go and compare that to the medical industry, then the construction industry, the mechanical industry, the aviation. And like, you would start, and all of a sudden it's like, there are through lines. There are common denominators that I consider universal truths, principles. It doesn't matter if you're a millennial, Gen Z, you're a baby boomer. Like, these are just basic human principles that 9 out of 10 times, if you learn how to apply these principles, you're going to create better morale. You're going to create a better person. You're going to set yourself up for not just success in the workplace, but significance. And that's what the book is. It's not a book written by a, self-proclaimed leadership guru. This is a book written by, at that time, 10,000 employees that knew what good leadership looked and felt like to them. And that's why I think I'm so passionate. It's their voice. It's what I feel like every employee really wishes they could say to their bosses. Yeah.
I think about the exit interview ideology, and I think everyone stores information up that they can use for their exit interview for years, and they get to the point and they just want to fire off instead of being like, hey, there's some really actionable things that we can do to make this a culture that you want to stay. And that's really what you advocate, is creating a culture where you don't want to leave, right? Yep. I love it here. You said something today. You want to create information or disseminate information that makes you a practitioner versus being a theorist, right?
Yes.
And again, going back to your book, that's what I love about what you've done. Is it's, again, not theory, it's things that you can do. Can you talk about some of the things that are actionable that folks can actually do instead of just theorize?
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Yeah, I didn't want to write a book that just talked about problems. I wanted a book that was focused on solutions. that you could read this and you're like, okay, here's an actionable step. So in the book, I call them moments to master. Every time when I would go undercover and people would say, I love it here, I love my job, I love where I work, and I would say, why? Never, ever did an employee say, I just work so good because my boss is so good at time management. I just love him. He's amazing. Or we run the best meetings. We're just always on time. Or, we run our maintenance logs. They're just perfect. I'll just never leave. No, nobody talks about that. What they talk about are the times when they got sick and the boss sent flowers or sent food, or they had a baby and everybody rallied on the team and provided 6 months of free diapers.
Yeah.
They talked about the time when they were struggling through a divorce, or they were having a hard time with anxiety or depression. And, the director of maintenance came up and said, hey, take a few days. Or can we provide some counseling? Again, they're advocating. How do I make you a better person? Because when you do that, the chances of them investing back into your company, it matters. And it's always a balance of standards and connection. Standards and connection. And it's always that, like what you talked about, Shawn, it's hard to balance all of that. We got to stay profitable. We got to stay productive. We got to get things done. So those are the standards in our business, the tangible side of what we do. But the intangible side is people, is connection, helping people feel seen. It's when you realize as a director of maintenance that people have a life outside of work.
Right.
And they might be struggling with things that you have no idea about. And so we got to balance that dynamic constantly. And far too often, I see a lot of managers that it's standards, focus, get it done. Because if not, my butt's on the line. Mm-hmm. And it's switching that dynamic to, no, I got to connect first. Let me build a relationship. Let me try to communicate to you that I'm not here to push you. I don't want to pull you. I just want to walk with you. And I've got you. I will be the advocate in the story, and together we can do this. And at the end of the day, if you're striving to do that and the employee doesn't want to do that, sometimes people need to be fired. Sometimes you need to coach people out as much as we try to coach people in. But being the mentor in the story is key. You ask for an action item. What can I do? How do you become the mentor in the story? Every great story has a mentor. Luke Skywalker had Obi-Wan Kenobi. Frodo had Gandalf. Rocky had Mick. These people that people chose because when they looked at them, they said, you can help me live a better story. How do I choose Shawn? Because Shawn's going to help me advance. Shawn's going to give me tools and traits. And when it comes to promotion time, Shawn's going to be in my corner. Mm-hmm. And he's going to help me. And I know he's not going to sit there and hold me back or stop, but he's actually going to help me live a better story. So I choose him versus another competing company down the street or another industry down the road. So it's becoming that person. And we found that those people that people chose, they had 5 C's: confidence. They were confident in who they were. They were confident in their communication. They were confident in showing people the possibilities. They were credible. They have a history, a background. I remember what it's like to be in sheet metal. I remember what it's like to sit out in the hot sun working on this and that. I've been there. That's huge. Yep. But then it's also competency. The beauty of Shawn and why Shawn has had such success is because he's got the credibility, but he's also a practitioner. He is not the guy that sits back and just, I'm managing the schedule, do your job, get it. No, he can actually jump in and do it if he needs to. So there's a sense of relevancy that's created there. Candor is the 4th C, the ability to have tough conversations. I'll connect with you. I'll make you feel loved and seen. I'll also tell you when things need to improve. Mm-hmm. And through that, I'm the mentor in the story. So it's not from a place of, well, you're just being a jerk. You're just being someone that's, you're just, I'm here to walk with you. I'm here to advocate. So candor is a part of it. We got to have honest conversations. And I want a mentor from someone that's going to give it to me straight. Mm-hmm. It's not all sunshine and rainbows in leadership. But then that 5th component is caring. I actually care about you. I care about your kids. I care about your family. I care about your success.
That's huge.
Don't just care about productivity and are we getting things off the line and making more money. I care about you as a human. Mm. So I think if we can embody those types of things, we strive to become that entity, that's what people choose. If you've ever had a mentor in your life, you chose them. Yeah. And I guarantee you chose them because when you looked at them, you saw a variation of those 5 C's.
Yeah. As you brought up, everybody, I think, in their career has had a mentor at some level. So I think it's important as you progress in your career that you reciprocate and you become available and you remember what it was like when you were that young person, and make yourself available for those folks that are looking for a mentor. You know, like you said, the person's going to accept or essentially choose you to be a mentor, but you still have to accept it, right? Mm-hmm. And some folks aren't willing to step up and give time, which is unfortunate because we need that. So sorry to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say, you brought up a great point, John, because I think that's such a great framework within all of this is, because sometimes like, oh, how do I do that? Like, okay, like I need at least 5 C's and become the mentor. Like, what does that even, where do I start? And how do I like get to that point? And I often hear people will say, well, just be the leader that you wish you would have had.
Yeah.
And every time I hear that, I think, okay, what if we changed that to, no, become the mentor you were lucky enough to have. Mm-hmm. For me, that model of who are the people that changed my life? Who are the people that believed in me? And what are the 4 to 5 key attributes and characteristics that they had that made you want to choose them, that made your life a better story? Like, if I were to give any leader, maybe a first go-to idea, it would be that. Who was that person? Who are those people? Was it Dave, Grandpa John, the guy that was the old director of maintenance? Was it your dad? Was it like, and what were the things that just intrinsically moved you and changed your life? Start there. Become the mentor you were lucky enough to have. Yeah. It's a great starting point.
Yeah, absolutely.
One of the comments that you made earlier today that really struck home, all of these things that you're talking about and sharing with us on how to be a better leader, it's also going to make you a better parent, totally. A better spouse, a better son or daughter. So it's not just about work; it's about your entire life.
Yeah. And work, unfortunately, affects a lot of that.
Yeah.
It affects how you are as a dad. It affects how you are as a spouse or a partner. Like, you spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
You better like it.
Yeah. Totally.
My kids they're athletes, as young kids are. And you talked about your wrestling career today, growing up in a wrestling community. My community is very similar. It's also a mountain community. Wrestling's a big part of it. But in an unrelated sport, we're talking about a coach that isn't the best. Mm-hmm. And I remember the conversation that we had. I'm like, hey, you learn a lot from the coaches and leaders that you don't like. You learn a lot from the ones you do. But the ones that you work for and play with as an athlete, those are the ones sometimes you're like, I don't like how this person made me feel. So those are the things, like, then I'll never want to do that as a leader. So I feel like you learn almost as much sometimes from the bad leaders and bad coaches as you do from the good mentors.
Totally.
Sure.
Which is interesting. But something you talked about today too, and I'm kind of going out of order here, but I love the way it's flowing. Your second point today was keep it simple. And I think a lot of people, they theorize and they think they've got to come up with some really grandiose plan to make their staff feel like they love them as a leader. When I think it's really the opposite of that. Can you talk about that simplicity that you referred to?
Yeah, in the undercover research, like, again, people would talk about moments, and it was usually because a leader said no to a few things so that they could say yes to them. Most of the time, a good director of maintenance or somebody, like, they know what they need to do. You went to school, you understand, like, you know how to nail this together, put this, fix this, test that, like, but the significant, when it came to people, and we're talking soft skills, the intangible stuff of employees, what really matters is what you said no to, what you learned and needed to stop doing. Da Vinci was the person that said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And I often say in my keynotes that your employees spell mentorship T-I-M-E. Mm-hmm. I can't spell that well, but that's how they spell it. Time. How do we create more of it? It's the same way your kids spell it. Mm-hmm. It's the same way your spouse or partner spells it, time. Like, how do we create more of that? And I think as a leader, as they learn to, if we can get in this world of, well, we stop thinking about financial affluence. Well, we gotta make money. We gotta get it done. We gotta be efficient. And we start to add a little bit more space for time affluence. It's amazing how morale will increase because of that. Yeah. Because you've said no to a few things, and it's a balance, and there is no one right way to do it. But if that is your focus of, okay, I gotta figure out in my schedule today sometime to just go walk the floor. Yeah. And I gotta take just 1 hour a week to just take a guy to lunch. Like, just that. You do that, like those are the moments. Those are the little things compounded over a long period of time that matters. I don't know.
I had an aha moment today listening to you when you asked how many people in the audience love to-do lists, and I raised both hands.
Yep.
But then you said, what about a to-don't list?
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Mm-hmm. That's mind-blowing.
Yeah. What are the few things that you can start to create that will allow you to say yes to the things that actually really matter?
Right.
And it's a hard balance because as leaders, there's always that pressure to perform and there's always that pressure to produce. And that's where the hope is that also from the top, the very top, like the Kennys, the Todds, like that they have this same mentality to where you could say, hey, I'm going to take a guy to lunch for an hour. Like that's an hour away from productivity. That's an hour away from, but there are people that would say, go do it. Yes, because they understand that it's about people, not just about building helicopters.
Yeah.
And that's what we need. We need more of that. If you want to play and thrive in the world of retention, because too many organizations, too many maintenance shops are learning how to do this really well. And that's where people are going.
Yeah.
Everybody's picking up on the new way.
Yes. Yep.
From what he's talked about, what kind of resonates with you and what have you seen here as far as, the simplicity, like the little things that matter?
I think just reaching out, like you said, I mean, just getting out there and talking to people, and it's difficult because you are so busy. You have to do what you said and step back and go, hey, I'm going to go out here and just walk around and visit. I mean, it's more than that, but it is extremely difficult when you're in a company this size to take that time that you're talking about.
Yep.
And that's the hardest part because you get so focused and next thing you know, it's 3:30.
Yep.
Like, man, what happened? And you went right through lunch or, you had this call, you had that call and next thing you know, it's 3:30. Then next thing you know, it's Thursday and next thing you know, everybody's walking out the door on Friday and you got nothing done that you wanted to get done that you were thinking about over the weekend.
That was on that to-do list, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We just had a conversation with James Helke from Leonardo. He's the DOM over there, and he blocks out 2 hours, I think it's a week, that he dedicates. He won't take any meetings during that time, and I commended him for that. I'm like, man, that's really cool because, you guys have a lot that's on your plate, a lot of people commanding your attention, a lot of people competing for your time. So I think that's really cool. And again, going back to Metro, you guys have created this culture here that's amazing. You don't have people that have been here for 30 years by accident.
Yeah. And that's the big thing you have to remember. I say that, that we get so busy and there's so much going on. But if it wasn't for those guys, it's just like we had the conversation before we started. I mean, there's relationships out there and in the company that you can count on, and you have to I don't know the word, but you have to take care of those relationships. I mean, you have to take care of those people, and the other thing that you see is when you see two guys coming up with an idea to fix something and they're just kind of off the cuff trying to come up with it. Well, other people are watching that. Mm-hmm. And they're realizing, man, they'll listen to me, and that's what a lot of people, I remember being out there and sometimes you feel like, man, I could come up with a fix on that, but, I don't really want to jump in there and do it. But when they see that going on and they see that back and forth and they feel a little better about, hey, I got an idea.
Right.
So that makes life better.
They have a sense of ownership.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, and you can't fix all the problems, like you said. It's not all rainbows and candy, but I mean there are times that you can come in and make a difference.
Yeah.
But you have to speak up. You have to be willing to speak up.
But the environment has to be so that the employee feels like they can speak up.
Yes.
Yeah, and you guys have done that here, so that's awesome.
Stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors.
Thank you to our sponsor, Bell. Bell proudly supports the Vertical MRO Podcast and their vision to share valuable insights into helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. Bell is dedicated to keeping our customers in the sky and on their missions with industry-leading global customer solutions.
Rotorcraft Support Inc. where expertise meets excellence in helicopter maintenance, repair, and overhaul. FAA and EASA certified Part 145 repair station and OEM factory authorized service center. Keeping your aircraft mission ready since 1986. Visit us at rotorcraftsupport.com. Rotorcraft Support, trusted by the industry. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned aeromedical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 140 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors. Thank you for tuning into this special two-part leadership series on the Vertical MRO Podcast, recorded on location at Metro Aviation in Shreveport, Louisiana. We hope you found the insights shared by Shawn, Bruton, and Clint Pulver both inspiring and valuable for your leadership journey in the MRO community. Effective leadership, mentorship, and genuine connection are essential for building strong teams and thriving organizations. Be sure to catch Clint Pulver at the upcoming Vertical MRO Conference in Kelowna, British Columbia, or Irving, Texas. Details and registration are available at verticalmro.com. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review, like, and share it with your network. Your support helps us bring more valuable conversations to our community. Thanks again to Metro Aviation for opening your doors and allowing us to record at your awesome facility. Thanks again for listening, and until next time, stay focused, lead with purpose, and keep elevating the industry. Cheers.